What's up guys, it's Deftoned here, and I wanted to do a video in celebration of my, well, it's been over a year now, just a little bit over a year of my creation of my YouTube channel. So I just want to give a huge thanks for everybody that supported me in the past and still do. I really appreciate it. So I want to thank all of you very much from the bottom of my heart for supporting me. And this is kind of a hobby, it's not a full-time job, so I don't take this as seriously as some of the other YouTubers do. But I kind of want to dive into this issue that's been on my mind for a long time since they patched all the modded weapons. Not all of them. There's still a couple of modded items you can use in the game and get away with, but just in general with the sanity checks that they completely just wiped clean. So I'm going to read an article that I dug up online that was published a few months before the game released. So this was an article that was interviewing Randy about a possible SDK. And if you don't know what SDK is, it's a dev kit, and what they do is they allow people, they make a creation kit just like Skyrim, Bethesda does, which enables you to make tons of content. So in this interview, they ask him about what they should do. So the article in this by Kotaku, here is the title: Feel free to mod Borderlands 2. You'll just have to do it without an official toolkit. So I'm going to read this article to you. For a time, Borderlands makers considered developing and releasing an official mod toolkit, but realized that its community had hacked the game apart and already accomplished much of what a software development kit would deliver. And that's not partially true, so I'll get to that. So SDK plans were shelved as redundant and unnecessary. And here's a quote from Randy himself. The best thing we could do for the community was to get to work on Borderlands 2. Imagine if we'd spent a year working on an SDK for Borderlands 2, Pitchford told the Res PC and Indie Games Expo. That doesn't mean Gearbox is going to build one for Borderlands 2, I guess, because the modding community will find it and pull apart the files on the PC version the same way they did with the original Borderlands 3 years ago. So I'm blown away at this article because they totally just told us flat out that we can mess around with the PC files and do whatever, and there's no repercussions. So if people don't really realize, but they Borderlands has always been made on PC then port to consoles. It's not made to the consoles and port to PC. So when they make a game, they have the PC gamers in mind first. So they know that they're going to dig around the files and do stuff. Now in the Borderlands 1 game, modding was everywhere. And I can't remember how long it took them to, it's been a while, I can't remember how long it took them to patch the crazy weapons that used to be able to do, because you used to be able to combine like pistol parts with rocket launchers and make these crazy ridiculous guns. They eventually patched that, and then they found another exploit to make the stock weapons, which are basically the guns that do billions of damage and one hit kill any single enemy. And that never got patched. But the one thing I'm assuming they're talking about that blew them away was the Oasis DLC content that I can't remember what his name is off the top of my head. But he developed it and published it on the Gearbox forum as a mod, as an add-on for Borderlands 1. And it was widely accepted and praised for. This guy created this content that was and allowed people to do various things with that Oasis DLC. And I kind of find it ironic that Oasis is an actual travel point to Pirate's Booty. It's like the very first one. So I kind of think they used that exact title on purpose because of how blown away with it. So when they developed Borderlands 2 and released it, everybody immediately tried to find a way to mod things in the game. And eventually it came to find out that we were able to mod weapons. But the only way to do it was inside the bank, because if we put it in our inventory, it would disappear. So there's one thing that they lied about right there. So we weren't exactly free to do what we wanted to do. And I can understand that, because Borderlands 1 at the end was so notorious for modded weapons, of people freezing each other's consoles and doing all of that on the consoles. That was primarily On the consoles, that was the biggest problem. And they kind of used this Microsoft and Sony as a scapegoat as their anti-cheat policy, because they have these long-ass terms of service agreements for Microsoft and Sony regarding modding games. However, it's still rampant on various other games, and they never release any patches for it. For instance, Call of Duty. You go to Call of Duty World at War. You go to multiplayer game, any single game you go to, you'll find at least one or two modders in there, and they'll be either have God mode on. And this is a competitive game, so this is a totally different thing. They should have patched this a long time ago. That gives players an uneven advantage over other people, and it makes people want to stop playing the game. So I think Gearbox had that mentality that we're going to not allow any of this creativity in here, because that's what happened near the end of Borderlands 1. However, they went back on their word on saying that they were going to encourage modding. That's what basically Randy was saying, that they were going to do it anyways and they were going to allow it to happen. So what did happen? We're not really sure. There has never been any official statement, I've seen at least, by any of the developers or the community manager. So after all that's been done, they've been constantly blocking modding ever since then. They patch every single thing that somebody released that was new. And they also patched some unnecessary things like the backpack space, the bank glitch, where you can actually store multiple weapons in your bank. And that wasn't even a game-breaking glitch. It allowed people to collect more weapons and put them in their bank. That's what the whole game's about. It's got billions, well, not billions, but probably 30 plus million variations of guns. And they give you, to start off with, before any of the DLC and microtransactions came about, they give you 32 bank slots. Okay, so that means you have to make multiple character mules, and then they have claptrap storage. 4 slots for weapons for claptrap storage. Come on. Seriously. If you spent that much money on Borderlands to develop after your complete failures before, I mean, it's just ridiculous. I don't understand what was going on with the development team. I don't know who was in charge of that and making the executive decisions, because obviously Randy either was blindsided about it, or they just were going to do it the last minute and not allow any modded content. So that's what kind of upsets me right there. If they had released an SDK, if they spent the time and resources to release a creation toolkit like Bethesda has done, and you can see just the amount of content that they can produce for Skyrim, Fallout series, and everything. And that's basically expanding your gameplay right there. I mean, I don't want to understand why they did that. I have a theory, though, is that because of the failures of the other games they released prior to Borderlands 2, they didn't have enough resources to do it. Because if we look at the games that they made prior to Borderlands 2, okay, this is pretty sad. So the games they made prior to Borderlands 2, right after Borderlands 1, they made Brothers in Arms 2 Global Front, which, guess what platform it was on? Mobile devices. Whoopie-doo. So is that going to generate a lot of revenue? No. Next game that they spent a ridiculous amount of money buying an IP for, spending years of development on, lots of money. Guess what game it was? Duke Nukem Forever. That one bombed. Next game, Aliens Infestation. Never even heard of it. You know why? Because it was on the DS. It was published by Sega and developed by Gearbox. So those games absolutely did nothing as far as revenue-wise, so they put all of their money into Borderlands 2. That was their only saving grace right there, was Borderlands 2. And the thing they did not invest the time to, where they could have built a way bigger community, was adding a creation toolkit. That's just what blows me away. After saying that we don't need to do an SDK because modders already know how to do pretty much everything, it's ridiculous. Because if you were just to take the core Skyrim files without using the creation kit, you wouldn't do the things like using a portal gun shooting potatoes in Skyrim, alright? So if they develop something like this for Borderlands 2, can you imagine what could have been done? All the new weapon types. You know, you could have had a gun shooting claptraps if you wanted to. I mean, there's the endless possibilities for it. And they just said, no, we're not going to spend the time doing it. And the reason why the modding community is so popular is because the amount of gameplay it adds to it. People have clocked in thousands and thousands of hours on games that are years old because the modding community keeps it alive. After Bethesda did their few DLCs, you know, which people still bought regardless, even though they can make their own content. You know, shoot, even there was this one guy that made this DLC. I can't remember what it was, but he spent thousands of hours making this DLC content. He composed the music himself. He had voice actors, real voice actors, do the talking with the NPCs, and did a whole storyline that was to a new area on the map that you could travel to. So imagine what could have been done with Borderlands 2 if they allowed that to happen. People on the Gearbox community wouldn't be so anal about modding. And the whole thing with policing the word modding on the Gearbox forums is absolutely ridiculous. The moderators on there are such a pain in the ass. I don't know who chooses them, but just they are just the most elitist pricks I've ever had to deal with. And I just stay away completely from the debates because I know the threads are going to be locked. I remember seeing a huge thread, at least had probably 5 pages worth of talking about why couldn't Gearbox be like Bethesda. And it was made by somebody who eventually got banned right after that post, and he made really good points. But everybody bashed on him saying, no, 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 no. It would completely ruin the multiplayer, blah, blah, blah. They would always think some excuses to bash on creativity. It blows me away. It really does. And it's really sad to see that the modding community gets shunned so much because of a few bad apples. And by that I mean people who intentionally go into public games and crash other people's games. It's people like that. You know, it's primarily on consoles because I play on PC, and the people that I play with, they're all adults. I rarely run into somebody who is like, excuse me, like 12 or 13 years old. I go in the console version, and I would say probably 70% of the community that I've met on Xbox have been kids. Hey, can you do me some modded guns, please? They talk in a real girly voice and all this stuff, and you know, it really kind of irks me that, you know, there are people like that just think modding guns is just for killing bosses quickly. It has nothing to do with that. For me, it was fun to create guns that were not droppable in the game. A lot of them had super cool effects and everything, and I loved making, you know, a pistol that shot the Minecraft arrows, or the low gravity guns that you shoot low gravity rockets and stuff. That was awesome. That was fun to do. So I think they missed the boat on that one because there could have been a huge following for that. So I'm really disappointed. So, you know, in closing, I would like to just think of Borderlands 3, because the games that are coming out in the future for Gearbox they're developing, they're making 2 homeworld games. The original ones that were, they purchased the IPs of that, so they already spent the money that they made from Borderlands 2, bought 2 IPs, And they're making a Duke Nukem sequel. I really, really hope this company is really spending the time and their money that we gave them for their Borderlands 2 product wisely, because all the microtransactions, all that stuff that I purchased. Now, mind this, I purchased the content on Xbox and on PC. So I've spent probably over $200 total on this game alone. And I enjoy it. I love the game, but I just don't like the community that totally demonizes modding and publicly and gets Gearbox to patch everything. It blows me away. And a lot of the people on the Gearbox forums secretly mod too. They use it to make their challenges tougher. You know, they use cheat engine on the PC. You know, when the OP8 Digistruct Peak challenge came out, you know, they made enemies that were tougher so they can make YouTube videos on the insane boss fights. So all of them, I guess, are cheaters too, right? They're modifying the game's files, so why are you not harassing them, but you're harassing the other people who actually are the people who stand for modding, instead of, you know, saying, oh, modding is, you know, something for cheaters that can't play the game correctly, which is the oldest, you know, excuse in the book. I just guess that people don't want creativity in Borderlands 2. They just want the same. They just want DLC content, which is what they've been giving them, and that's fine. I'm happy with the DLC content. You know, the only thing I don't like are the microtransactions for the skins and the heads and all that stuff. You know, that just kind of blew me away. Honestly, it was to make up for the losses for all the previous games that bombed. That's just clearly said. The Headhunter packs and everything, they're really cheap. You know, it's good. I'm glad they made them cheap. If they would have made it like $10 for a Headhunter pack, then I would be really pissed off if they really were thinking about doing that when the gameplay is only about 20 minutes long. I remember playing. I bought Mercenary, the Christmas thing, Mercenary Shop, whatever. I don't remember because it was so fast. I played it and I just blazed through it. I wasn't even using mods. I was just playing with my normal Gunzerker, and yeah, and that was it. And I was like, really? Okay, I just spent $5 on this DLC. Awesome, and I'm never gonna play it again. And yeah, you can say, yeah, it's $5 so you can get a cup of coffee and everything, but I don't buy fucking coffee. $5 to me, I'm Jewish with my money, okay? I'm not a Jew, but I like to conserve my money and buy something that I'm going to use over and over again. So, to me, it's a waste of money. I'm sorry. If I sound cheap or whatever, too bad. Deal with it. So that's pretty much all I got to say on that case. I'll probably make a video on what my suggestions are for Borderlands 3. Thanks again, everybody. I really appreciate your time and support, and I hope you guys had a Merry Christmas.